Hello. Good morning, everybody. If you can begin to take your seats, we're going to be starting as promptly as we can. Everybody can find a seat. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Massimo, tu ti metti vicino ad Andrea e qui mettiamo Paolo e... Poi metto io.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to take your seats, we're going to be starting very shortly. Thank you.
No, we don't. We have you now.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can we put this inside your pocket, all right?
Sure,
or-
sure you can.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm standing here and you're there.
Great. Excellent. Then I'll call Van.
No, dunque, allora,
I'll call
allora
Van
guarda,
up.
qui oggi
Stava una flash, ci sta dentro. Complicato è. Siamo due soli, non c'è problemi. Su quello di per Milano sì. Problemi per
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to welcome you to the
sì, ti
inaugural.
giriamo da 5 minuti.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can please take your seats and keep quiet. Okay, we'd like to welcome you to the first Italy Meets the United States Summit. We have a spectacular program for you today, so we want to get right to it. First, let me call up Carlton Van from the Mayor's Office for International Affairs of the City of New York for a welcome and a presentation of a letter from Mayor Bloomberg. Carlton.
Thank you, Gideon, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the New York City Mayor's Office, I'd like to welcome our distinguished guests from Italy. The Mayor's Office for International Affairs serves as the city's primary liaison between the City of New York and the diplomatic and consular community. I'm in the Division for International Business, which works with foreign government representatives, bilateral chambers of commerce, and other investment professionals to assist foreign companies interested in opening an office in New York City. So if any of you know a company that's interested in coming here, please let me know. Italians continue to play an important role in our city's economy. In addition to the over 200 Italian companies that have a presence here in New York City, almost 500,000 Italian tourists and business people visit our city every year. One of the goals of the Italian Business and Investment Initiative is to highlight the innovative sectors of the Italian economy. In many ways, it reflects what the Bloomberg administration has been doing in New York City to promote the tech industry and to transform our city into the 21st century capital of innovation. Over the past several years, the Bloomberg administration has announced a number of initiatives to diversify our economy and to establish New York City as the world's leading digital city. These initiatives include attracting new growth industries such as bioscience, digital media, and green technology, and promoting entrepreneurship across all sectors of the economy through a range of initiatives such as training and mentorship programs, and a network of business incubators to nurture young, innovative companies. These business incubators provide cost-effective real estate options for entrepreneurs and startup companies, as well as support services such as legal, accounting, and financial advice. Most recently, the city announced plans for a New York City Clean Technology Entrepreneur Center to support startup companies in the growing field of clean technology. Similarly, in October of last year, the mayor announced a new business accelerator program called New York's Next Top Makers to promote 3D printing and innovation. The city is encouraging local entrepreneurs, designers, and inventors to submit ideas for new technology that will revolutionize the way that objects are manufactured. But you can't have growth in these new sectors without talent. So in December 2011, Mayor Michael Bloomberg announced an historic partnership between Cornell University and Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology, to build a $2 billion, 2 million square foot applied science and engineering campus on Roosevelt Island. Until the new campus can be built, Cornell NYC Tech will have a temporary home in the Google building in Chelsea, and its first class of graduate students began instruction last month. The city announced a second agreement in April of last year to create a new Applied Sciences Center in downtown Brooklyn. The Center for Urban Science and Progress, or CUSP as it's called, will be a partnership of top institutions from around the globe, led by New York University and NYU Poly. In addition to providing infrastructure, the city is also encouraging the creation of new digital tools. For example, a few weeks ago, Mayor Bloomberg and our school chancellor, Dennis Walcott, announced the GAP App Challenge, a new software development contest to identify new programs to enhance math education for our middle school students in our public schools. Other examples include the New York City Big Apps competition to reward software developers for the best new smartphone application that uses the city's open data sets, initiatives in the healthcare technology sector, and new tools such as the Made in New York digital map, which lists new technology companies, co-working and incubator spaces, and venture capital and angel funds that invest in tech companies. So as you can see, the Bloomberg administration's goal is to transform our city's economy and to change the way that city government delivers services to the public. We're proud of our so-called legacy industries, but we're also investing in the future. We encourage companies from Italy and around the world to join our growing economy. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions about these or any other Bloomberg initiatives. It's now my pleasure to present this letter of welcome from Mayor Michael Bloomberg to the Italian Business and Investment Initiative.
Thank you very much, Carlton. You know, New York is a wonderful place. It's a great place to visit, a lot of life, a lot of culture, and it's also obviously a great place to do business. And in that respect, it's a lot like Italy. There's a lot of attention to Italy's spectacular cultural heritage, to its classic 4 Fs, food, fashion, furniture, Ferrari, and so forth. But its place as, its reputation as a business opportunity, I think is generally underappreciated, especially given the attention often paid to some of the fiscal problems and larger macroeconomic picture and its unfortunate location in Europe to a certain extent. The point of this conference today, which will be the first of one hopes many, is to highlight the extraordinary opportunities that exist financially and industrially and in the commercial sector in Italy, and to bring the United States and Italy together to showcase Italy's corporate and financial and political leadership for American opinion leaders and investors and all those who want to know what is actually going on in Italy today. We have a spectacular 2 sets of panels today. The first with some of Italy's most important corporate figures, who are right here, and the second with Giuliano Amato and David Thorne and Vittorio Grilli, who are going to talk about the Italian political situation and how that affects. What we are going to do right now is start with Ambassador Thorne and get things going. Ambassador Thorne, the U.S. Ambassador to Italy, would you please come up here and give your initial remarks?
Hi, good morning to everyone. Buongiorno a tutti I miei amici italiani. Thank you for inviting me to this, letting me open this inaugural event. Italy meets the United States of America, and to discuss Italy's opportunities amid the Eurozone crisis. I especially want to thank Fernando Napolitano for launching this summit and for doing so much to further U.S.-Italy relations, which includes, among this initiative, his great work that he did with the U.S. Embassy in Italy on the Fulbright Best program, which encourages young Italian entrepreneurs to come over here, study with American entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley and other places, and then come back, be mentored, and start new initiatives back in Italy. It's a terrific program. It took a lot of leadership, and I want to commend Fernando for doing this. I also want to recognize my fellow panelists, not just the ones in the second session, but my friends here that I know so well in Italy, and who've worked hard to stabilize Italy's EU finances during the recent recession. And today's theme is very timely, and I look forward to hearing the valuable insights that come out of all these two discussions. I first, though, before I go on, just want to just acknowledge two important events of this week. One is the Italian President Giorgio Napolitano is arriving here to meet with not just President Obama, but especially President Obama, but also the new Secretary of State, John Kerry, and Vice President Biden. He will have meetings with all three of those people. It's really a tribute to his incredible stature and leadership in Italy that he has been granted this sort of farewell visit by the President. The President holds him in tremendously high regard, and I think that this visit will create, and will certainly create, this sense of a strong tie and strong respect between the United States and Italy through the presence of Giorgio Napolitano. And I can't emphasize enough how important this interaction and the way this will be played in Italy. And this happens this week, especially at a time when Italy's facing the, well, I don't know what you want to call it, but the confusion and the difficulties of the election and the electoral process that's coming up. Because, as we all know, the President Napolitano is going to play an absolutely key role in the way this is going to work out after the initial election, because they'll have to form a government and form a coalition, and he will play an important role. Second event, of course, is something I just learned when I walked in here, which is I understand that the I understand the Holy Father, Pope, resigned. I didn't know you did that or could do that. I don't think anybody knew it since the last time it happened was 750 years ago. But I find this really, I've been sort of trying to understand my reaction to this, and I find it an incredibly important, I think an incredibly important event in our current life. You know, that he would make this move when he was getting more and more infirm and unable to provide dynamic leadership to the church, that he would step aside in an unprecedented way to allow for new leadership and new energetic leadership to take over the church and to be able to conduct the business of the church, which is so important in Italy and across the world. So it's truly an unprecedented and important event. It will bring Italy into the forefront of the news in ways that no one expected, and I just needed to acknowledge that. Those are my initial thoughts about it. God knows it's going to be written about for a year, for weeks, days, years, and we don't know the full impact of that event. Anyway, those two things I just wanted to mention. We've got a new Secretary of State, John Kerry, who, other than being a close friend of 45 years of mine and actually an ex-brother-in-law, he deeply values the strong U.S.-European relationship and will work to promote this during his tenure. He plans to continue Secretary Clinton's priority of economic diplomacy by placing economic and market forces at the center of U.S. foreign policy. I would challenge Italy to consider doing the same as it crafts its own policies. I also know that there is great interest on both sides of the Atlantic in pursuing a U.S.-EU comprehensive investment. I'm going to turn this telephone off because it won't die. The Comprehensive Investment Trade Agreement, which is achievable and could increase investment, exports, economic growth, and jobs. The State Department is encouraged by the level of support we've seen for the potential agreement from the European Commission, individual member states, and from many business groups on both sides of the Atlantic. If there is a continued political will to complete this agreement by all the parties, we believe we will achieve a satisfying result in the fairly near future. Globalization is the disruptive force in both a positive and negative sense that has challenged both our countries today and that of the rest of the developed world. And it's reshaping our traditional ways of thinking about that world. While today's event focuses on Italy, and specifically Italy's relationship with the United States, I would argue that the larger theme is one of how to face challenges throughout the world. While bilateral relationships are still important, global power is being increasingly shared among more national and transnational platforms, such as the European Union and ASEAN. The power of the individual is also on the rise, fueled by social media tools, and as we saw during the Arab awakening that rocked much of the Middle East. I'm really interested to hear what the representative from the mayor's office and the mayor's letter said about the social media tools in conducting business, because I think it's an extremely important theme, which I'll get to in a moment. In this globalized environment, every effort toward the European Union's further economic integration can't help but benefit each EU member state. That said, the United States has historically had a strong bilateral relationship with Italy, and this relationship has only grown closer during the Italian government's recent reforms. Over $26 billion of foreign direct investment in the United States comes from Italy. I'm eager to facilitate yet more investments to the United States as well as to Italy to further strengthen these economic ties. While short-term growth in Italy remains sluggish, confidence in Italy has returned. The spread between Italian and German benchmark bond rates has narrowed from the crisis point, and Italy has repaired its credibility in the world and reaffirmed its place as a key European player. I hope that Italy will continue these reforms regardless of who's in office following the elections in 2 weeks. Some Italians I know complain that the reforms didn't go far enough, and certainly the reform process must continue. When looked at as a whole, though, it is remarkable that this technocratic government and the parties supporting it were able to accomplish in 13 months' time. Much has improved. However, when I speak to U.S. business people, the number one issue that causes concern for investment is the need for judicial reform. As you all know, trials in Italy can stretch on for years, often decades, creating a climate of uncertainty and risk, factors guaranteed to discourage investment. Contracts can be revoked without notice, leading businesses to lose their prior investments. As evidence of my point, Italy ranks 160th out of 185 countries on enforcing contracts in the World Bank's 2013 Doing Business Index. Another desired reform is the need to cut the red tape and bureaucracy that stifles competitiveness. In 2012, Italy ranked below nearly all EU peers in international NGO rankings of regulatory transparency and ease of doing business. Italy's overall doing business rank is 73, behind Azerbaijan, Ghana, and Belarus. Streamlining procedures for businesses to start up and wind down operations would greatly improve Italy's attractiveness in the world. Despite the further room for improvement, recent reforms have been effective in attracting new investments, however. For example, on Jan 31st, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, became the second largest shareholder in Unicredit, acquiring a 5% stake in the bank. In December, General Electric, as you all probably know, announced the acquisition of the Italian aerospace company Avio for $4.3 billion, requiring a longtime partner in its jet engine business. This came after a decades-long partnership between the two companies. Avio has been supplying components to GE since 1984. The transaction is expected to be finalized contingent on clearances of the EU and U.S. antitrust authorities in the second half of 2013, bringing the number of GE employees in Italy to over 12,500 people. Similarly, the U.S. pharmaceutical companies employ about 13,000 people and constitute about 40% of all foreign added value in Italy's pharmaceutical industry. One of the most important measures taken in the last year, and it's also has been an American Chamber of Commerce in Italy priority, was passing Italy's digital agenda. And as I said, I was really interested to hear how much New York is doing in this regard. Digital technology and social media have become and will continue to be economic drivers worldwide. Digital technology is already transforming the way we work, and as our economies on both sides of the Atlantic continue to recover from the recession, leveraging new technologies will account for a large part of that growth. The digital economy accounts for 7% of U.S. GDP, and that figure will only grow, especially considering that the digital economy accounted for 37% of the United States' economic growth in the past 20 years. I'd like to see Italy experience this same type of digital-based growth. AmCham Italia's digital advisory group in particular, working with us in Rome, the U.S. Embassy in Rome, identified the weaknesses in the Italian digital economy as a barrier to economic growth and advocated for this issue both to the public and to the government. The recommendations became the core of Italy's Digitalia agenda. This is especially important because Italy still has considerable opportunity for further internet penetration when compared to other EU countries. In 2012, about 55% of Italian households had broadband internet connection. The EU 27 average is 72%. This less active use of the internet means that Italy is missing out on a huge growth engine that will likely have an adverse impact on Italy's economic recovery, growth, and ability to innovate in the years ahead. While increased digitalization and the use of social media raise legitimate questions about privacy, copyright protection, and freedom of expression, I believe we can and are successfully addressing these issues to ensure an open internet that pushes for economic growth. Doing so will be essential to the increasing global business environment. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you all with a question. As ambassador to Italy, I'm frequently asked, is this a good time to invest in Italy? I think so. But instead, I'd like to also ask a question back to you. My personal question comes in the form of another question. Is Italy willing to persist with the reforms that will ensure it continues to become a more desirable place to invest? The U.S. stands ready to support Italy. We hope the next Italian government will continue to make the difficult but necessary choices that will not just enable Italy to recover from the recession, but choices that will make Italy stronger than before. A friendlier place for investors, an easier place to do business, and a country that takes full advantage of the potential that digital technology affords. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We're going to discuss, of course, the reforms and their future in the second panel. In our first panel, we're going to get to some of the the highlights of the Italian corporate leadership and landscape. First, let me say that please silence your cell phones and other kinds of devices. This is an on-the-record meeting, but if you could avoid disrupting the proceedings with constant beepings, that would be great. Second, although the Holy Father is stepping down, he's one of the few Italian leaders not here with us today. I believe this is the most impressive gathering of Italian corporate and political and other leadership in the city, at least in my memory and perhaps in the memory of others as well. And those deserve recognition. The ambassador mentioned Head of State Giorgio Napolitano, who sends his best and welcomes participants to the summit and hopes that this really augurs a successful discussion about fostering investment between the two countries. I'd like to acknowledge Permanent Representative of Italy, the United Nations, Ambassador Cesare Regalini today. We also have the Consul General of Italy in New York, Natalia Quintavalle. And we have, in addition to the Ambassador Thorne, we have John Viola, the Chief Operating Officer of NIFE, the National Italian American Foundation. John's been a great supporter of this summit and is going to be spearheading preparations for the 2014 Italy Meets the United States Summit as well. Again, we hope this is going to be an ongoing showcase for the Italian investment opportunities with the financial and corporate audiences and political audiences in New York and the United States as well. With that, let's turn to our spectacular set of panelists. What we did here is a little bit of a beauty pageant. We have some of Italy's most impressive companies and some of their most respected corporate leaders. And so what I want to do is showcase a little bit about what their businesses are and how they're dealing with the challenges that they face and how they're succeeding in meeting those challenges. And then we'll throw it open for some broader discussion. But again, our feeling, the whole point of the summit is that people don't understand and don't respect the corporate culture that is really succeeding in Italy across the board. And so this is an opportunity to really get a sense of that and why the businesses that are making Italy what it is and such an impressive economy, how they're managing to achieve their success. So we have Signor Scaroni from E&I, we have Signor Conti from Enel, we have Signor Ragnetti from Alitalia, we have Signor Ibarra from Wind. Unfortunately, Signor Cucciani from Intesa Sao Paulo couldn't be with us because of the storm. He sends his regrets and wanted to be here as well. But with that, let's just start a little bit. I think let's start with Signor Scaroni, and we can, I think, get rid of the podium, and we can address. I think we can. Is it okay? I think we can move the podium, and we can just sit.
It's okay.
Okay, this is in a relaxed and informal setting. So why don't you each just sort of tell us a little bit about your business, about the industry, and about how you're meeting what you see as the major challenges that your company and your industry is facing.
Okay, I'll try to be short. Well, Eni is one of the leading oil companies in the world. We are the 6th company for production of oil and gas. We just overcome ConocoPhillips in the last couple of years. We have a market cap, since we are in America, market cap is quite important, which is, I think the last time I saw it was 17th in the world. Just to give you an idea, we are a little higher for market cap than Walmart. So we are a big company. We are a large company. We operate all over the world. As most of the oil companies, we are essentially everywhere where there are hydrocarbons. So from Australia, Africa, Gulf of Mexico, Alaska, everywhere in the world. If I have to define a characteristic of Eni, we are an African company. We are by far the largest producer of hydrocarbons in Africa in terms of volume, growth, and presence. We operate in 22 African countries. We are by far the leaders in North Africa, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria. And you can imagine one of the challenges we are facing now. To be so big in North Africa is certainly a big challenge. In financial terms, we are performing well, as most of the oil companies are performing well when oil prices are above $100. So we do not deserve particular merit for it, and we enjoy a very favorable scenario. Now, going for a second to Italy, then I leave Fulvio to speak about Enel, because you might know that we have been working together for some time. And by the way, Eni is also in electricity, very small as compared to Enel, of course.
Fishing for compliments.
Huh?
Fishing for compliments.
Fishing for compliments. I was saying, in one word, and I move back to Italy, we are losing money in all our Italian and European activities, and we are making money everywhere else than in Europe. So this gives you the dimension of our challenge. In Europe, we sell, of course, we sell refined products, and the market is collapsing. We are selling petrochemicals, and the market is not doing well at all. We are producing and selling gas, and the gas market, for the first time in many, many years, has been going down. Essentially, we are really feeling that Europe, in the last couple of years, has been the weak spot of the world economy.
Let me just say, actually, I should have said this before. You have two handouts, and one of them is a really summary of the impressive reforms that Italy has managed to put across over the last couple of years. And that's almost like a background for the second panel, this on continuing those reforms. And the first is, the other handout is a snapshot of the Italian corporate climate and community, including biographies, short biographies of each of our panelists here, who really are impressive and deserve far more time and attention than I can give them. Thank you, Signor Scaroni. Signor Conti, why don't you tell us a little bit about Enel and what you're grappling with?
Well, if I have to speak about challenges, I will have to spend the entire day. So I try to skip around the challenges just in two categories of very high summary of the many challenges that an industry faces all across the many geographies and areas of businesses. The first challenge is that we are mostly regulated business. There are regulators, independent or dependent, depending on the countries, varies from country to country, that sets the maximum amount of pricing that you can fix the tariff at for your business. So there is no such thing as a free market, so to speak. You have to deal with regulations. This is a major challenge because you don't control your own revenues. That is very important. The second very important stuff to consider is that we are in a long lead time industry. It takes ages for a big plant to be built, to be operated. It needs a lot of time to get permitting. Getting permitting, getting all the many different permissions that you need to erect a power plant over major electroducts across the country is becoming increasingly difficult. We live at the many syndromes, not in my backyard, but also another syndrome that is becoming available in these days, mostly in Europe, but not only in Europe, which is called NIMTO, not in my term of office. Politicians say, don't bother me, please. Don't ask me to take difficult decisions. Long lead times, regulation makes most of the time very difficult for an industry to be invested on. And yet we invest on this industry. We try to offer people a different paradigm for the energy, especially in the area of electricity. We consider, of course, we are biased by our profession, but we consider electricity to be the most efficient energy. You can see here, we're consuming many kilocalories, but you don't notice. You have a lamp, you have a distribution wiring system. It's coming over here efficiently, neat, clean. You don't see it. Where is the difference? It's that you now become, as a consumer, very attentive on the way this electricity is generated and is distributed to you. Therefore, you need to promote innovation. It is no longer a passive consumer habit to switch on and switch off. It is more a conscious decision that you're taking on a basis of what you know about the way raw materials are transformed into a very sophisticated energy altogether. And that's why we've driven, over the last few years, the company into what we are today. A diversified technological and geographical company having scale to promote further investments and being innovative. We have a #1 position in many different fields. This country is a good witness for that. We are investing here at the tune of about 1,300 megawatts of capacity, only on renewables. But we are the only one company here in the United States of America to have the whole range of renewables and innovating it. For instance, we are #1 in geothermal. We extract steam from the ground. We're now using in a place in Nevada, in the state of Nevada, this technology coupled with photovoltaic so that we can add more capacity to extract low calories or low heating steam out of the ground. No one else is doing that. We are #1 in promoting geothermal, of course, but not only. We are promoting technologies like the highly concentrated solar, transforming the sun into energy around the clock, even at night, by accumulating this heat of the sun into a different system that can be used overnight. So 24 hours around the clock capacity of generating electricity out of the sun. We're #1 in using hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very difficult thing to handle, and it's not available in nature. So it's time we have, and this is a cooperation with Eni, we take spare hydrogen from their Marghera plant, and we use it for generation of electricity. They come from all over the world to see it because it's the only industrial application of hydrogen for generating electricity. I could keep going and going, but let me finish with something. You, being consumer, especially in this country, you still don't have that kind of habit to promote yourself into deciding which kind of energy you want to use. You use it more passively. I see the administration of President Obama trying to promote efficiency, to try to promote more of technology progress into the transforming lower amount of kilocalories into kilowatt hours, which is fine. You have to go into that more than in the past. You have to think that setting targets for efficiency, setting targets for pollution reduction, setting targets for lower emission is something that companies like Enel can effectively handle, not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. And you as a consumer, you can afford for yourself a different style of behavior that will make possible to promote progress in the world. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, Signor Conte. Signor Magnetti.
Yes. Alitalia 20 years ago was one of the largest airlines in the world, matter of national pride, on par with basically every other big airline that you now know has survived these 20 years. For 10, 15 years, it lost its way. At a certain point, Alitalia in the States, I think, was the acronym for always late in takeoff, always late in arrival. And 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, the company went bankrupt, and it moved from being basically state-owned to being private. It's now owned by a group of private investors. 25% of the company is owned by Air France-KLM as a minority shareholder. And the last 4 years have been I would say, pretty impressive case of turnaround. Just to give you a few numbers, referring to that acronym, We used to be one of the worst airlines in Europe for punctuality, regularity of flights, baggages mishandled, which are three very important operational measures of the performance of an airline. And right now we are the best airline in Europe for punctuality. We're the best airline in Europe for regularity, and we are in the top 4 for baggages mishandled. So a lot of work has been done to turn around the company and put the fundamentals in place again, and service levels have improved. We have a fleet that is completely renewed and is one of the youngest fleets in the world right now. So I encourage all of you, if you don't do it, to fly Alitalia. There's a lot to be surprised from. You have to do it today, right? Alitalia is a relatively small company. In terms of revenues, is a, let's say, mid-sized company. In terms of impact on the Italian employment is much bigger because most of our employees are in the country. We have 15,000 employees, and we estimate that if you include all the other businesses that are related to our airline and that could not exist without our airline, we're talking about 65,000 people in the country. So it's a very relevant employer in Italy. Is a company that needs another couple of years to complete the turnaround, and in this couple of years has to decide what the company wants to do in the future. Meaning in terms of strategic alliances, whether we will decide to try to survive alone or will try to become part of a much bigger alliance and therefore look for scale, which is what all airlines are doing. In the States, you have a remarkable case of consolidation in the industry that has created now a certain stability for the airline industry. You have only 4 or 5 big players. In Europe, there are still more than 100. So there's still a long way to go, and Alitalia will have to find its way, as I said, in the next couple of years.
Thank you very much. Senor Ibarra, you want to tell us about Wind?
Yeah. Good morning to everybody. My company works in one of the most demanding industries in this moment, and Ambassador Turner was right in saying that probably the telecom industry is one of the most value-added industries for the development in the world. Wind is the third largest Italian telecom company. In some areas, it's getting very, very close to the second one, fortunately. I'm very proud of it. And the telecom in this moment is really a difficult sector because all over Europe, let me say, mainly in Europe, the pressure on the top line is extremely high, and this is depending mainly on recession. It's also a matter of very high competitiveness, but at the same time, it's a sector, it's an industry that has probably one of the most incredible potential opportunities in the world, because now the world is shifting from voice, and now everything is getting more and more data. So if I look at the Italian telecom picture right now, what I would say is that 10, 12 years ago was probably one of the most advanced economies in the world. Italy was really the state of the art in the 90s, late in the 90s and let's say beginning of this century. Now, of course, it's struggling a little bit, and this leadership has now been overcome by the United States. I remember the time the USA was really below the Italian companies in terms of innovation, in terms of penetration, in terms of technology growth. But now it's a little bit different. It's probably the opposite, because in the United States, companies were able to capture the data opportunity before other European countries. So now the Wind in particular is trying to recover, let's say, these positions in Italy over the last 3-4 years, has grown a lot in the residential market. Is at the same time trying to improve its position also in the SMEs market that is really growing a lot. It's a company that has been able to maintain its cash flow in a very solid way, and at the same time has been always able to get an improvement in terms of market share and value share, both in the residential, as I said before, and in the SME industries. Challenges are a lot. This is a sector where the profitability is high. The EBITDA in the mobile is around 45% and 47% as an average. For the fixed, it's different because the fixed industry is a little bit more difficult, it's a little bit more inertial, but also in that industry, Wind is getting a very good position in terms of market share and value share with Infostrada, because we have this important brand. And not only a matter of cash, but also a matter of investments. We have been investing approximately 1 billion euros over the last 3-4 years. The industry, as I said before, is capital intensive, so it requires a lot of investments. Now we are deploying the 4G network, the LTE, that has been awarded last year. Very expensive, of course. That's why we have to roll out it in a very efficient way in order to get the right return from the investments that have been done in this area. And at the same time, the importance of data is something that we have to get into consideration, because the shift from voice and data will require companies to invest more and more in capacity. It's not only a matter of rollout, but it's also a matter of capacity. And the ecosystem now is really improving, because all the players of this ecosystem, including over-the-top companies, including vendors, including technology providers, it's really booming. So the opportunities that in this sector are, let's say, there, have to be captured, and I think this is one of the most important challenges that we have to consider when moving forward. Wind is owned by two main players in the telecom industry. VimpelCom is the owner of Wind, 100%. The two shareholders of VimpelCom are Telenor and Altimo. So we have Russian and Norwegian investors. And they are really looking at the development, not only in terms of penetration for voice, but of course in terms of penetration for data. And they recognize that this is absolutely a tremendous momentum, positive momentum, to consider when improving and increasing investments in Italy. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Signor Imbaro. I think we can testify to the interest of the Italian corporate leadership in advanced technology. Fulvio and Paolo were comparing the apps on their iPhones as that was going on.
No, we were looking here. There is the 4G.
we don't have any. There's 4G. You know, as Ambassador Thorne said, there have been these reforms and changes that have taken place so far in the last couple of years that have dramatically improved all sorts of investment opportunities in climate in Italy, but there are still there's still distance to go. There are still things you'd like to see from government. There's still what is your perception individually and collectively about the sort of the risks and the reality versus the perception of doing business in Italy? Any of you?
You want to start? Or you want me to start?
No. Listen, you're talking now about risk, but let me make first a quote, if I may, because I was showing this quote to Fulvio. Now, there is a gentleman who said, speaking about politics and in Italy, the budget must be in balance. The arrogance of the administration needs to be challenged, and we need to reduce public expenditure. Youngsters shall accept every possible job instead of asking for public subsidies. And this was Cicero, 55 after Christ. Before Christ. Just to say that we are still there. moving ahead slowly, but we hope that politicians will take the lead, the lead, because leadership is the most important thing we need, leadership. I think everyone knows more or less what has to be done in Europe and in Italy to play a major role in the global economy. But we need leadership to sell it, to sell ideas to the Italians and the Europeans. For example, I just make an example, then I leave Fulvio making other examples. I have been working many years outside Italy, in countries like the United States, for example, where the labor is extremely flexible. Here, this is a country in which you pay 2 weeks of salary, shake hands, end of the story. Same thing in the UK, same thing in Australia, in Holland, in Canada. I can make many examples. Now, the Italians believe, wrongly, that since you can fire, the boss every morning, just to keep in exercise, fire somebody. Just to every morning say, oh, you go away, you come. This is not true. For example, I've been working in the UK for many years, where I had 9,000 people. In 7 years, I never fired anybody. Because, I mean, what a CEO of a company wants is to keep the personnel, not to fire, not to keep it. But explain this concept to the Italians is impossible. Is impossible. I tried several times to explain it, that flexibility does not mean at all people moving every day from one job to the other. But in order to explain this concept, we need a strong leadership. And this is true, not just in Italy, but in most of continental Europe. If we don't explain that flexibility is a must, jobs either are flexible or they don't exist. Okay? If we are not capable of doing that, our competitiveness in the global economy is going to be always extremely weak. But I leave a few examples to you, Fulvio.
My gosh, I mean, it's difficult to follow on this. After Cicero, it's difficult to quote anybody else. I can quote Mr. Scaroni.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, isn't it? But you are alive. That's the thing. I mean, I'm sorry. Cicero died younger. It would have been of value to us. But I can use another allegory. There is no good wind for a sailor that doesn't know where he wants to go. That's one way of describing the vagaries of the politics in these days. There is no clear direction, and therefore there is no good wind for that. But being positive, as I think we should be, running a country, you have to be leader, but you also have to be assertive. I think what we need is a bit of clarity on the structure of the state. We have a federal state here. We try to have a federal state in Italy, but the federal state in Italy converts into what without being fictitious, quoting this, without any doubt, the proof is in the Palio di Siena. I say Siena not to the reference to the Monte dei Paschi, forgive me for that, but Siena is an example of federalism. There are small areas of the city. Every single area of the city fights for winning the palio, winning the horse race in the Piazza del Campo. But the most important thing most of the time in these wonderful exhibitions of medieval costumes and riding abilities of horses and riders is not to win, because the horses are a drone. Therefore, you don't know whether you got the best animal to win the race. But if you don't get the best animal to win the race, the second best thing for you, being part of one of this neighborhood, is to avoid that your enemy wins the race. So the example of dealing against someone to succeed is more than the one that why don't we cooperate to have a larger success. So this mentality we have to fight to avoid the false ideologies about federalism. We need to have a united country. We need to have a stronger central government to rule on us, less fragmented level of authorities. The veto rights should be, to some extent, diffused. I mean, someone who has no interest whatsoever but has the ability to interject into a process can say no without taking any responsibility for that no. And that's why we have less of an incentive for investments that we need to remove. We call it titolo quinto in the Italian constitution. It's one area where we have to go back to the founding fathers of the constitutions, saying that some business opportunities should not be decided at the local level. Superior interest should be always borne by the government. Reform of the titolo quinto, this reform is very important. And then let the previous reforms start yielding to us. The last few months, the incumbent government or the retiring government has been promoting some structural reforms which have not yet produced results. We should not make the mistake of repealing those reforms. We should be able to maintain those reforms and let them work throughout the future so that we can possibly yield the benefit of those reforms, including the labor reforms, but not only. Pension plan has been one of the best reforms that we've seen. I mean, we have been able to postpone the moment of financial crisis. We're running a country with a primary surplus. So we generate more cash than we can apply to reduce the level of investment, debt, and increase the level of investment. There are plenty of things that can be done. If you look into the electoral campaign in these days, you will hardly see anything of this. This is one of the reasons why I push my people in the Industrial Association to promote a few pages with a program, which is an economic program that says clearly where you can find the money, where you should spend the money without increasing the debt, actually reducing the debt and being able to relaunch the economy of Italy into a dynamic, positive dynamic and growth. Because the most important thing for everybody here in this side of the room and in the room itself is to recreate trust in the consumer, to recreate trust into the investors, and to recreate job opportunities that we're missing. Therefore, I think whatever you can take as an opportunity to invest in Italy, you will be part of a system that is rolling up the sleeves and trying to fix it for the future generation.
Thank you very much, Signor Conte. Signor Magnetti and Signor Ibarra, do you have any things to add on these fronts?
A lot of interesting and very right things have been said. One thing that I'd like to add is what I'd like to see is more of what we have seen in the last months and maybe a few years in the determination of the Italian government to play a role in Europe and bring the discussion and the conversation outside the country, because that would be a very important realization that the balance of power has shifted. And I remember, I always give this example, I remember when I started my career in an American multinational, Procter & Gamble, in Italy, 25 years ago. And at the time, being part of an Italian subsidiary, of a local subsidiary in Europe, was the best breeding ground for talent, because everything was decided and done in the country. And then in the company, we started having job offers for the European headquarters. And nobody wanted to go, because going there was seen as a problem for your career. And it took us 10, 12, 15 years to really complete the shift. And now, if you want to have a career in a European organization of a large multinational, you have to be somewhere at the headquarters. And I think with 15 years of delay, this is what is happening in Europe, and we have not yet fully realized that that's happening. And that's where really the power and the opportunities are and will be. And if I look at things from my observation point of my industry, a lot of the regulation that we have to then deal with in the country is born, decided, shaped in Europe, and we don't have enough influence yet.
Are you optimistic about the trends in Europe, or are you pessimistic?
The trends, the business trends in general.
Well, in the Europeanization, in
I
how
think
the
it's going to
unions
be
work.
very. Yeah, I think obviously then the challenge is governance and how to make this very complex organization work and how to become very effective. I think it's a huge challenge, but it's not something that can be reverted.
Senor Ibarra.
Yeah, I think this one of the most important questions I used to be asked from my shareholders is, what do you think about Italy? Of course, they are foreigners. They are investing a lot of money in wind. They are absolutely happy with the performance. So the performance is absolutely outstanding. They understand clearly that the company is outperforming its peers and everything is going in the right direction, as I said before, in terms of cash flow and whatever. But the question is, when they ask, what about Italy, is that do we have, so the second question below it, that they don't ask, of course, is do we have to invest, to keep investing in Italy, or do we have to increase our investments in Italy? And the answer, of course, is this one. If you look at Italy, and you look at all the ingredients, you say, okay, this is the second manufacturing country. I always say company instead of country, probably because I consider the country a company. But it's the second manufacturing country in Europe. In terms of equity per household, probably is the most important one in Europe, within the UE. And these two elements tell you that probably the country has all the ingredients to be optimistic, because it means that there is equity there. The public debt is not so demanding as normally it is communicated, and it seems to be under control. There is no any private debt as in other countries. At the same time, there are 150 industrial districts in Italy, and each one of these 150 are probably state-of-the-art in their segment, in their niche segment. So last time I talked to an entrepreneur in Emilia-Romagna, and he told me, look, I'm in the industry or spare parts for trucks. And he showed me his figures, and he's the most important company in the world for this area. And there are a lot of examples for that. So if you look at this and you try to position Italy in the world for the future, so you have to feel optimistic because there are all the ingredients. The problem is that we have to still to keep fixing the basics. And the problems are all the same and always the same. Infrastructures. No, we probably stopped investing in infrastructures 20 years ago. Education. I always say that education probably is the most important investment that the country has to make in order to invest in the future. And I think that education is very low in terms of investment. R&D probably is one of the lowest of the investment. The GDP for R&D is very low. So if you look at all these elements, you probably think that by filling the gap in terms of innovation, R&D, in terms of education and infrastructures, probably there will be enough fuel to start or to regrowth again. No, this is the way I position Italy, and every time I try to explain this to shareholders, it seems they are satisfied by this answer, but at the same time they are a little bit worried because they say, okay, yes, what is going to happen next? As we said before, reforms are going to be there? Are we going to invest in reforms? Are we going to keep the reforms that we are doing? Are we going to do all the basic things that we have to do in order to have more stability in the country? And my answer is, of course, yes, because I don't think that there is any other opportunity. So I really believe that this is going to happen, whatever government will be in place. It's 2 weeks from now. Because there is no any other chance. The economy of Italy and the political system of Italy is too much engaged in the world. So it's not like 30, 40 years ago. It's totally different. About Europe, I think that it's exactly the same way of thinking. Europe has been probably the most developed area in the world over the last 30 years. And now it's facing the challenges of being a mature ecosystem with, let's say, the population that is aging and all this stuff. So it's just a matter of reconsidering again that some basic things has to be really put in the context and fixed, but doesn't seem to be rocket science.
Good fundamentals, but you need investment in infrastructure, education, R&D. Unfortunately, the political system isn't providing the leadership to move forward. I'm not sure whether you're talking about Italy or the United States. We really have, by the way, if you haven't yet, and you will take with you, the second booklet you got, not just on the reforms, but about the wonderful fundamentals that are there that Fernando has put together. Either they're completely made up or the story really is quite impressive. So take a look at it and check it out as sort of what Senor Ibarra was talking about in terms of some of the basic things that can go forward. With that, let me throw it open to a conversation among all of our participants and guests as well, so that you can engage with our corporate leaders here. I think you can see why these men have been able to lead their companies to the success they have. So let's take questions from the audience for our panelists. When I call on you, please wait for the microphone and sort of stand and state your name, and you can address your question to any or all of our people. So who would like to kick off the discussion? Yes, over here. That's you.
Any microphone?
Ciao.
In terms of the challenges facing Italy as we look forward, first a somewhat disrespectful question. Are you the future of Italy, or is Italy all about the small and medium enterprises we keep hearing about? Because ostensibly, what bothers them is not an issue for you. They have no access to credit, or where they have access to credit, the costs are too high. The euro is not competitive. And the labor reforms we keep talking about do not quite seem to percolate. I don't know, for example, 3 days ago, I think the Wall Street Journal, there was this article about the Ferrari of your porcelain ceramics business shutting down completely. So my question is, if growth is the challenge, and it has to come from ostensibly the small and medium enterprises, what can we expect looking forward from the reform processes, etc.?
It's an excellent question. So who wants to take on the relation between the sort of larger corporate structures and the SMEs?
Let me try. I mean, obviously, the colleagues here can implement whatever further opinions they might have. The two things go together inextricably. Big companies can nurture and develop small, medium enterprise. I mean, we are, for instance, in our country, Italy, not only in Italy, but of course I'm focusing on this specific issue. We work with 15,000 companies. This is the overall system of relationship that we have, most of which will be small, medium enterprise to begin with. The point about it is that small, medium enterprise are good if they become larger. So the main drive that big companies like Enel can develop to make that transformation is to oblige this 15,000 company to consolidate their capacity. If you go around industrial districts in Italy, you will find umpteen numbers of small companies, very efficient, exporting their products across the oceans without major problem. But think about the potential of combining this into larger companies. If you go around the Milan ring road, you will find examples of that. I mean, companies that are being created and built about one single product, and the next door guy replicates the same without combining these things. I mean, this is the real issue. So big companies have the role of driving possibly the transformation of the small, medium enterprise into more consolidated companies. You're asking whether we are the future or not. Well, of course, I do believe we are the future. But it's a future made of two things. Government support into policies that will make it possible for the small guys, for the small neighborhood of the Siena old cities to cooperate rather than fight each other. And this has to do with fiscal reforms, has to do with incentives, has to do with export credit support, things that are available but they are not enough, or they are not available for everybody. Credit crunch is something. I mean, I wish I could have here Kukiani to answer your question, but it is now becoming less of an issue. Less of an issue because there is something out of this huge, long financial crisis, that the financial side of the crisis seems to be receding. Now we have to take care of the real economy side of the crisis. And that's where we need credit. That's where we need banking support. That's where we need regulation stability. I think we're getting there. I think that for sure we're getting there. I had to wipe out the remaining 3 weeks of campaign, electoral campaign. I mean, because everything will be said on the contrary. You don't have to believe it. You have to wait 3 weeks, and then we'll possibly have a government that will take care of that. The programs are there, the policies can be effectively enacted, and the combination of more combination of small, medium enterprise with big enterprise can be effectively a virtue and a solid platform for Italy altogether.
And I would add to this that I think another important role that companies like Eni or Enel, companies of that size, can play is to
can't wait long.
Is to export good governance and managerial culture, which is also important if you want to consolidate the small businesses and make them bigger. And we need schools. We need, playgrounds where people can actually learn the rules and learn how to run a large organization and how to have a company that is really managed by managers and not by a family or by owners, which is mostly the case in Italy.
Yeah, let me add you something, since we are here to promote Italy. Now, I don't want you, you go home with the wrong ideas. Italy today is full of middle-sized exporting company making very good profits. Everyone who has a size to be international. Now, you cannot be international if you have 20 employees. You have to have a minimum size. And you are exporting. These companies are doing well. 2012 has been a better year than 2011, and 2011 has been a better year than 2010. So these companies are performing well. It is true, driven by export, particularly the Far East, which has been the new thing for Italian exporters. But just to say that Italian entrepreneurs always find their way to survive, to sell their products, to innovate, as long as they reach that minimum size which is required in order to play in the global market. You were mentioning Milan. I was speaking the other day to the president of the Association of the Industrialists of Milan. 70% of the companies which are part of the organization have been doing a 2012 better than 2011. Just to say that there is progress. There is progress, no doubt.
All right, if I may add something to, there is not too much to add to what has been said, but it is right that the specific situation, the particularity of the Italian industrial structure is that there are, let's say, a big number of micro businesses something around 4 million. And there are, let's say, a big chunk of small, medium enterprise. And what Mr. Caroni said is absolutely right. Probably all of these companies that have 70 or 60% of their production going abroad in terms of exports, they are all doing very well. Of course, if the production is going in order to fill and to meet the internal demand, then these companies are struggling. The role of a big enterprise in Italy, in particular in my case, is just to provide as much as possible the right infrastructures to these companies. Because these companies are getting, let's say, better and better in terms of size, are exporting, are really making money. But one of the things and the responsibility of a company like mine is to really provide the right telecom infrastructure, because telecom infrastructure, I think, is even more important than any other infrastructure in this moment, because it speeds up tremendously the ability to compete in other markets, to really fight the bureaucracy in the processes internally in the company. And this is, I think, the main responsibility. About the credit access, this is, of course, a responsibility or mixed responsibility. The government and also the banking sector in Italy, and this is something that has to be reviewed, because most of these companies are absolutely efficient. Most of these companies has a lot of opportunities in additional investments, but in this moment are struggling because of this credit accessibility. So this is something that has to be, of course, reviewed.
Yes, right here in the back there. Yes.
The gentleman over there.
1 second, let's wait for the mic. You actually have him now.
Thank you for having this conference. My name is Michael Manella. I was born in Abruzzo, came to America in 1955. I wound up 20 years going back to Italy and finding my family. One of my frustrations, in which I agree with all of you, is education is so important. In doing business with the Italians, going back and I have a unique product that I've brought to America that has a lot of potential. My frustration is 4 years in doing business with Italy and trying to get them to understand what they need to do to bring this product here. And in America, it would have taken me 6 months. Education is so important because the Italians still do not understand how our market works, even though they think they do. And I have lost a considerable amount of money in trying to promote the product to America. The product is involved in agriculture. So I haven't given up on the project, but I am totally frustrated with the amount of time it's taken and the amount of investment that I made to get this product into the marketplace. And I urge some kind of education for investors like myself to be able to talk to some people like yourself. It's a frustrating process. We're almost there because tomorrow I go to an agricultural show out in the Midwest, and we have 20 different bigger manufacturers that are interested in the product. But I'm still struggling with the company in Italy to understand, I'm not a bank, and I can't keep funding this with all your mistakes. So if there's anything you can do to help a small investor like myself to promote Italy products, this is what I'm looking for.
Okay, that's more of a cri de coeur than a question, but if you want to...
Well, I personally can only express my disappointment for your angst and difficulties. But I wouldn't generalize this to be a case that applies to all of Italy, to be honest with you. There has been several instances where you can demonstrate without any doubt that one of the best ability that we have is to be able to export things. It's not just the food, fashion, football, and whatever. It is more of a general statement. 25% of the overall economy of Italy works on exports. That must tell you something about the ability to do that. And maybe the case you are describing for yourself is possibly an accident. But in general, I would say education is important, without any doubt. It is important that we need to do more. We need to do more in a sense of creating more technicians and less humanitarian, whatever, liberal studies. We have to have more engineers and less graduate in law. There are too many lawyers in our country, with due respect, and less engineer than we need. In farming, I would tell you, to be honest, the Italian produce are among the best, and therefore, if there is something that can be effectively developed, will be assistance in exporting technologies, capacity, new products, and the transformed food products that we do have. There are companies that do that as well. I don't know whether this is applicable to your case, but I cannot just help you by giving you the name and the address of the Institute of External Commercial, Instituto Commercio Estero, and trying to liaise with them and find out ways and means that you can be helped in your program. I'm limiting myself to this, but
Yes, you.
Good morning. Our heritage is so rich in our ability to...
Can you identify yourself, please?
Joe Carey. I'm Chairman and CEO of Integration Capital and Trade. Our heritage is so rich in terms of our ability to build things and manufacture things, whether it was in the fashion business or electronics, etc. Are those jobs gone forever in Italy? Because the notion that something is made in Italy has a great panache and a marketing play. And, you know, I read about so many of the artisan type of jobs going to China, and I'm wondering how that impacts the economic opportunities in Italy.
That's a good question. Who wants to tackle that?
Well, this is not really my business, but my impression is that in order to keep manufacturing in Italy of consumer products, it has to be products in which price is not the real thing that the consumer is looking for. Otherwise, these jobs are going to move out of the country, either in China or even in Eastern Europe or in other parts of the world. But we should not be particularly afraid of this movement, because what is really important is at the end of the day, creativity remains in the country, design remains in the country. They say the soft skills remain in the country, and this is the case because particularly in textile has been doing well all along the last 20 years and continue to do extremely well. So, well, electronics is another story. Electronics, I think, has disappeared from most of continental Europe a few years ago. Probably has disappeared in America as well. So that's another story.
Just to complement what Paolo was saying, it is true that manufacturing is one of the key strongholds of Italy. We do have 16, 17% of the GDP, which is manufacturing, one of the largest percentage. And we continue to be the second largest manufacturing country in Europe after Germany. Something has been lost on the way of this recession. This is a 5-year recession that is slowly, progressively biting on the meat of the manufacturing network of Italy. But not only Italy, it's Europe altogether. And we need to go back to the 20% level that we used to have. How? First of all, I think in Europe we need to have a quick look and a very deep look into reforming the made-in system. There are too many situations where made-in is made of a product of 3 components, and the 2 of the components are made in China and shipped over to Italy and reassembled. And this is the type of argument that you might be using if you will be a German or if you will be a French or if you will be a UK manufacturing company to compete with Italian. European Union allows this strange mechanism. So the first thing that we need to do as Europeans and only as Italian is to reform the made-in system and to make it more transparent and clear for everybody that a product has to be fully manufactured into a system. Therefore, you create a counter system of protection against the Chinese invasion. This is not the only one that we need to erect against the Chinese. We should not fight against the Chinese or anybody else, but we should try to stimulate Europe to be more assertive on the way the World Trade Organization works when it comes to interrelation between Europe and some of the BRICS countries.
If I may, just in order to say something about that. Part of my job is, of course, talking to entrepreneurs and trying to understand what they say, because they are, in the end, the belly of the country. And I don't know if what I'm going to say is statistically significant, but now entrepreneurs have really understood the fact that they cannot move production, or let's say the most important part of the production outside. And they also have understood that they need to keep the smartest part of their production in Italy. And also the soft skills are now being kept in Italy. And this is something they have understood over the last 2 years. Probably 5 years ago, there was a different sentiment about it. But I can say that now they have understood this, and they really understood that they have to invest more in Italy in terms of innovation and probably move production that is not so smart outside Italy.
Okay, over here and then over there after.
Hi, I'm Andrea Venturelli, and actually I want to have a question and bring my experience. I have sold my company to an American company, and now I'm here investing my money into the U.S. And given that we are here discussing opportunities of investment in Italy, I think that beside the bad scenario that we have seen, a political scenario and so on, it is a great opportunity right now for U.S. company to make investment into Italy, because as rightfully said, I mean, the environment of Italy are small, medium-sized company that has no other chance that grow, otherwise they will die. Now, the U.S. culture can help this company to grow. So investment in Italy, in this medium-sized company, to make this company bigger can be a great opportunity right now. And I can tell you, living from my experience, I've sold my company that I consider a small company, I mean over 100 million in revenue, to one of the biggest medical device company in Italy, in US, sorry. And within a couple of years, they were able to double the business. So concerning investment, and it's very opportunistic, I mean, with a global mentality that you can experience in US, if merged with the ability and technology that we do have in Italy, that is, from my point of view, a great opportunity for investors, for US investors into Italy.
We agree.
Okay. I think you guys agree over here. Yes, over here. Next. Sorry, I think it was oh, yeah. Okay. I think that was actually he was next. You go first.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Hirth. I'm a private investor and I have a merchant bank. Complementing what this gentleman said, would you all address one key point? The currency for an American now to invest in Europe, it's about 135, 134. So from your personal experiences, do you see this holding? And if you address it also, not just from the Italian perspective, but three of you have shared that you do business globally. Given the political situations that you have, not just in Italy, but in Europe, compared to the United States, isn't it from an investor side better to invest here right now than it is in Europe?
It's a very difficult question you raised, really, sir. I mean, the commercial and financial papers all across the world are full of articles on which is the right balance of currencies. And it's difficult for me, I'm speaking for myself maybe, the other fellows here might have different views. If I would knew where the exchange rate would be, I wouldn't be here. I would be in a Caribbean island enjoying my money. And the other paradox is that not only I don't know it, but I can only give you a reflection of what it's all about. I mean, everybody believes Europe is passing through, especially in the southern part of Europe, but also in the north, a slowdown of the economy, recessions. And guess what? We've been speaking about a potential breakup of the euro. The Eurozone was in danger. I mean, people here in Wall Street are looking with disdain of European to say, we are not going to invest in Europe or in Italy because we are scared about Eurozone collapsing. And at the same time, the euro was stronger than ever. Either I didn't really read my economics books, frankly, or you have to explain to me whether this is more of a political than an economic situation. And there is no answer for that.
Anybody else?
No, I just give you, we make our plans at 130 euro dollar. I don't know if it helps you because we are normally wrong, but with this long-term forecast, we are always wrong.
And if you two want to jump in on that.
Oh, well, I'm looking at Mr. Scaroni for guidance because 35% of my costs are in oil.
I want the price of oil now.
Yeah.
This is even more
This
wrong.
is even more difficult, and 50% of my other costs, including oil, are in dollars. So if the dollar is at 135, I'm very happy. But this is one of the highest streaks in terms of the dollar being strong in the last 4 or 5 years. So I hope it will continue like that, selfishly from my point of view. But it's one of the most unpredictable items.
Over here and then over here, absolutely.
My name is Anthony Manera, and I work for JPP Eurosecurities, which is a subsidiary of Intermonte SIM. And, I've lived the last 22 years in Italy, and I understand some of the realities and its complications. And what I've noticed, having grown up as an American and having lived in Italy for 22 years, is the lack of acceptance of a market economy, which we talked on. And Mr. Ragnetti, Mr. Conti also spoke about this, the educational process that it would take to adopt an equity culture. There's just so many impediments, so many complications. Many of you know the commercialista is the right-hand man of every entrepreneur. There's the language barrier of the small family business, doesn't speak English, doesn't understand the equity culture, has no way to approach and understand the financial markets. And it just seems like an insurmountable hurdle, or one that's going to take a number of years before that culture actually changes. And a lot of it also has to do with the political leaders that you do choose. So it's a complex web that just sort of keeps the Italian in its own country. Its innovations. I mean, I've seen the products. I've seen the technology, the engineering. And if it could only get organized and unleash it, you'd be running the world. I mean, you wouldn't just be running the Mediterranean. And it's a shame to see it all being stuck back into the country. And what can we do to help unleash that?
I am listening to all the things that we said. I mean, one has to be optimistic about the fundamentals of the country. The country is way better than it looks or is perceived. That's a fact, and it comes from hard facts. There's a lot of misperception about Italy, and there are issues. Certainly living in the country, you can see that there's a certain delay in this area or the other. I tend to be optimistic because I think that democratization of information is changing things so rapidly. We've seen it in politics. We see it with the explosion of social media. A lot of the delays that the country has can be fixed in a much shorter time now than 15 or 20 years ago. Let me give you an example that I use frequently is tax evasion, for instance. Of course, that's a chronic disease of the country, if you want, and one might think this is never going to be fixed. But these are the days where, if you really want to put social stigma on somebody or some behaviors, you can do it in a very powerful way, and even individuals can actually have much more power than before. So if you provide the right infrastructure and the determination of the government to really fight against this, now there is an accelerator that is provided by just the social platforms. And so I tend to be optimistic because I think we live in an era where change can happen much faster. So not that we don't have things to fix, but I think these things can be fixed faster than they would have.
Yeah, if I may, there is one thing that I always, I think that this is one of the most important things. And you look at the large corporations and our companies, and in general in Italy, okay, the population is aging, as I said before, and you were raising this problem of education. I think that one of the elements that has to be solved is this capability, this capacity to renew, let me say, the population in the companies and also to give the opportunities to the youth. If you deal with whatever company in Italy, of course you tend to deal with people that are normally 40, 35 years old. In other parts of the world, it's totally different. And you are dealing with people that probably are younger than this. So it doesn't mean that all of a sudden all the people in the company has to be, let's say, below the 20s. This is not, of course, the case. But one of the things that we have to work in Italy in particular is to give the chance to the youth to get the right position and the right opportunities in the companies. Because if you talk to people that are 20, 25 years old in Italy right now, you understand perfectly that these people normally tend to speak English. They are more educated because they are digital natives. So they used to, let's say, to deal with the world, thanks to the social medias and so on. And these people probably will be the right fuel for the progress. So this is important. It's not only a matter of education, but it's also a matter of giving the right chance to youth in order to have the right chances inside the companies in order to modernize the ability these companies have to deal with foreigners and investors and etc. Because, again, the country and the economical system of the country is more solid than what it seems. The problem is that we are not very good in marketing this outside Italy. And I think that this is an opportunity, this conference, to give the right picture. The picture is much better than what it seems. Of course, there are a lot of issues, there are big problems, but not again rocket science.
Yes, over here.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Rosapap, Tucson Capital. I was born in Italy but grew up in the United States and have been here the whole time other than the 3 years that I lived in Romania, so I'm familiar with difficult business climates. I got a call a week and a half ago from two young cousins of mine in Italy with a problem. And I said, okay, so what's the problem? How can I help you? They said, well, the problem is that we have a very successful, small, web-based business selling video games and music. And I said, terrific. Are you making money? He said, we're making money. That's terrific. We're doing well. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that our supply is overwhelmingly comes from the United States, and our customers are overwhelmingly in the United States. I said, what's wrong with that? That sounds like a great success story. He said, do you understand how much is eaten up in foreign exchange? And I said, I'm sorry. You're going to have to live with it. We don't have the euro in the United States. That was the biggest problem that my cousins, these two tech guys who have a successful company in Italy, is the foreign exchange cost of having a booming business in the United States. Sorry to leave on that optimistic note, but I think there are entrepreneurs who are doing very well in Italy, doing very well in the worldwide economy in the digital space.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's a good note. Yes, back over here.
Yes. Pronto.
What?
Hello? No, si sente?
Oh, yeah, hold on. Oh, sorry.
No,
hold on. Yes.
no, there is yes, thank you. I continue. Veloce. She told me yes. She told me yes.
What? One second. We'll do here first, and then we'll do back there at the end.
Thank you, thank you. I am a cultural businessman. I don't speak well English because I teach Italian by acting at Columbia University and many universities in America. And I want to answer one question, to ask in Italian, perché loro parlano italiano. After in the answer, I am sure that everybody understands my question. Ok, sì. Anno della cultura italiana in America, 20 anni fa, Eschilo e Business, come convertire la cultura in denaro e il denaro in cultura, in teatro e altrove. C'è un progetto importante, Business, a New York, di un centro culturale italiano, teatro, ristorante, tutto. Ha bisogno di investitori. Allora, queste grandi aziende che fanno cultura, sponsorizzano eventi che avvengono in un momento e poi finiscono. Per 20 anni non succede più niente, come succederà quest'anno con la Banca Intesa, eccetera. Avete idea di voler investire in qualcosa di culturale? Anche perché in America è privato. Va bene? Solo questa è la domanda. Se volete investire, business, sono a disposizione. Vittorio Capotorto, grazie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who wants to tackle that
Now
one?
the
briefly?
answer, you understand everything. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It will be a private answer. Private answer.
We'll give you a private answer later on that one. So, okay, in the back and the right there. Yes, you wanted to talk about the tech issue. Hold on one second. Wait for the mic right behind you.
Thank you. Just to address the issue about the Italian technology entrepreneurs, my name is Tom Gaynor. I work for an international law firm, Squire Sanders. And with my colleague, Matteo D'Aste, we travel quite a bit between Italy and the United States, and in fact have sold numerous companies to American companies on behalf of Italian entrepreneurs, including Facebook and a number of other large media companies. And I think it gets to some of the issues that Senor Ibarra was talking about. The education and the entrepreneur and the dynamic of the young Italian entrepreneurs, they get it. They get the global platform, they get the innovation requirements. But to the issue that the gentleman was talking about the foreign exchange, the simple solution is to open up United States subsidiaries. And that's what we're seeing in the dynamic of that arena all the time. And I think that the climate is changing so dramatically and so quickly for the younger generation. It's something that I think the more established Italian companies have not yet caught on to.
Okay, I think that's a sensible point. Over here.
Thank you all for coming. Marco Elser at Vicorp. Mr. Conti's observation about Siena reminds me very much about the Italians who cut their nose to spite their face. I think the problem with Italy, if you're trying to sell Italy to Americans, I'm an American living in Rome, is actually civic culture. Italy is very hard to change. It needs dramatic reorganization, re-engineering of the civic philosophy. In Italy, we still have bribes. We still have black money. We still have concussion. We have all these terms which are very, very negative to Italy and send a very wrong signal to Americans. One of the things that needs to be re-engineered from the politicians up is they take huge salaries, they are useless, but fundamentally it should lead you companies, you big companies, should lead the example and be very, very transparent with all of your business methods and lead civic education. Don't throw, just the basic thing, throwing things on the floor. I mean, this is a stupid example, but the idea is be ethical. Italian misses it completely. Siena, I mean, in America, nobody would think of having a second bad horse, but making sure that your enemy gets even worse than you. I mean, we all play to win, not to try to crucify the competition.
Okay. Let's just get two more questions in and have their final comments from our panelists. Who wants to get into the last? Yes. Okay, back here, one. Yes.
My name is Bill Campbell from J.P. Morgan Chase, and it'll sound a little bit like a follow-on to that comment, but it's a little bit more philosophical, I hope. I don't know, let's say 8 or 10 years ago, in the height of the boom, I was at a similar conference about Italy, and the question was asked about, the question was very specific. Why is Italy not performing, these are the golden days, at as high a level of growth as the BRIC countries? And a very smart bank CEO answered the question. He says, well, Northern Italy is performing every bit as good as the rest of any other part of the world. Southern Italy is performing at nil. Even with the most optimistic of views, how do you deal with that regional disparity and have the kind of success that we would all look for in Italy?
No, that's actually a good question. Why don't we actually take that as the final question, but you guys answer that, but also any final thoughts you might have.
Okay.
Well, it is a question that might request a separate seminar, which I would be pleased to attend to some extent, because this is the fundamental question to answer for a country like Italy. There has been a divergence into the north and south Italian peninsula for many decades. It's not just a recent phenomenon. It is becoming evident that is one of the issues that needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. Now, a few things have been done in the early part of the post-Second World War by instigating a public spending into infrastructural development of the southern part of Italy, but then it kind of dissipated. It's about time that we go back to that old system of funneling funds specific, using the European Union's funds in a better way, but that also implies, to some extent, answering to the previous unanswered question about the system of ethical code of conduct of some of the Italian politicians or companies to some extent. And we need to couple these two things. Now, we strongly promote ethical code of conduct in our company. We strongly promote infrastructural development in the southern part of Italy. There are 28 million consumers and good engineers and good capacity and raw materials that can be used. It's a shame that because of the fragmentation of power and the creation of local authorities and local governments, this has not been made possible. A reform of the state, re-centralizing things, will possibly tend to give a solution to that problem.
Let me add just one thing. Now, the question you're raising was firstly asked at the time of the Kingdom of Italy in 1860. So the south of Italy has been a problem forever. Even Mussolini tried to do something and didn't succeed. The young Italian Republic after the war have been devoting huge efforts to try to solve the issue and didn't succeed. We are still with this major issue, which is really the major question we have for the future of the country in terms of economic development. Now, the one reason, apart from what Fulvio has said, that makes me a little optimistic is that this is not true for the whole of south of Italy. Now, there have been regions in the south which have been growing pretty well, like, for example, all the region of Bari, which has been performing reasonably well. Let's say, the problem is now very clearly focused on the region of Naples, and not even all the region, a part of the region of Naples. I would say the whole region of, I don't know how to say this in English, Calabria. Calabria, yes, you say Calabria. That's a major issue because the whole region is truly underdeveloped, and large parts of Sicily. But the fact that in parts of the south, growth and prosperity has been growing in the last few years, make me think that the problem is a problem that can be solved. It can be solved. Now, a central, strong government is the key. Without that, we will never get there. Ethics, but ethics, you don't impose ethics. You have to to convince people to change behavior, and this is a job for every one of us. But let's not lose hopes. I'm sure that the problem can be solved.
Signor Ragnelli?
I think there are two sides to this question. One is perception. What you say is a reality, but I think is a reality that is not really well known to investors, even to relatively sophisticated investors. I've been working most of my career abroad in large multinationals. I know how difficult it has been to convince my board to invest in Italy, because there is a widespread idea that Italy is an underperforming country that has a lot of problems, that doesn't have real excellence in almost nothing, apart from the obvious things, the fashion, the things that we all see, but they're small in size. And the things that you say, when I mention them to, as I said, even sophisticated investors are always taken as with surprise. So the first thing would be that we should talk more about the good things that the country has, the excellence in innovation, the excellence in growth that we have in parts of the country, in the north and also in the south. When it comes to the south, I also think that there are some, I would say, low-hanging fruit. It's a pretty heavy low-hanging fruit, but think of Sicily, for instance. Sicily has 1,500 kilometers of coast and is beautiful and gorgeous. Roughly the same amount of coast that you have in Spain in certain part, Costa Brava, for instance. Costa Brava, there are 45 million visitors a year. In Sicily, 4.5. So by just trying to fix, over a reasonable amount of time, this issue, we would get so much injection, of positive spirit, economic result, growth for that part of the country. Some things are just in front of us. We just need the coordination, the vision to get them.
Yes, very short. I think that the South has been always a question mark since ever. But in the end, nobody has the right recipe, of course. It's difficult to say. But in any case, I think there is a lack of what I would call, let me say, a business plan. No? Is there any business plan for the southern part of Italy? My fear is that there is not any clear business plan. So if we had to look at the southern part of Italy, we should probably focus on the two most important opportunities that are there. Tourism, as Andrea said, tourism is absolutely unbelievable. So I think that we have the best landscapes in the world. And the number of tourists is absolutely ridiculous. And the second one is food. And if we look at these two industries as they are industries, and we create the right ecosystem around these two industries, thanks also to the right infrastructures, because if you try to travel across Sicily, it's very demanding. So by doing simple things, I believe that we can really put the southern part of Italy on the right track. The last point is about the digital services. I believe that Italy has one of the most important assets in the world, which is the human factor. We are not only exporting goods and services, but we export a lot of people. And the United States is an example of that. And we export people, even though the education is not probably the state of the art. So imagine what would happen if we really invest in education and we try to keep these people in Italy in order to create these jobs that in this moment are being missed. So for the digital services, the great opportunity is that you can create something here in Italy, but the world is your market. And I believe that if we have to attract investments from abroad, we have to look at this digital area where you can find the right human factor, when you can find infrastructure, because you can create a company like this almost everywhere, and where the world is your marketplace. So I think that there are also plenty of opportunities in this area in Italy.
Signor Conti, Signor Scaroni, Signor Ragnetti, Signor Ibarra, thank you very much for a spectacular session. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes for our next panel after a short break.